property located at 1055 Florence Way to construct an approximately 7,000 square foot light industrial building. The subject property is a 17,500 square foot parcel that's located at the intersection of Florence Way and Sunny Oaks Road. Florence Way is a private street that functions really more as almost like a large driveway to the series of industrial properties shown here rather than a traditional street. Property is currently zoned PD plan development with a light industrial general plan land use designation. This is a photograph of the site as it exists today. It is a vacant parcel that was created from a larger parcel through a May 2012 City Council approval for a lot split and for construction of an industrial building comparable to what's being proposed today, but that was never built. This is the site configuration of the proposed industrial building. Again, approximately 7,000 square feet. You have 15 parking stalls located along the edge of the property that butts up against Florence Way, that private street. The building backs up to the rear property line at a 0 setback. You have a trash enclosure back here. There's some planting bioretention facilities towards the west side of the property over here. And pedestrian access to the side would be off Sunny Oaks through a walkway that's shown here that leads to the entrance, which is angled to the intersection of Sunny Oaks and Florence. Here we have 3D renderings of the site of the property showing the design that's proposed. You have a split face block and alternating shades of gray, then a more contemporary entry treatment with this 2-story vertical feature here to give it more of a contemporary look to further help the build out of the industrial area. As the committee knows, there are no design guidelines for industrial or commercial properties in the city, but the general plan does provide broad language about quality materials, which the proposal does seem to satisfy. Probably the point of the greatest discussion for this evening is the requested parking modification. The applicant is requesting provision of 15 parking spaces where 18 would be required. As noted in the memorandum, the applicant feels that a reduction is warranted because of proximity to transit and bicycle facilities, general plan policy, and indoor bicycle parking and charging facilities within the facility itself. Staff also did make note that the city's parking standards for light industrial may also be on the high side when made in comparison to the standards of the ITE guide. That's the Institute of Transportation Engineers, which would suggest a parking requirement closer to 5 to 7 stalls. However, it can often be challenging when we look at parking. We often note that there is somewhat of a disconnect between developers who try to build fewer parking spaces rather than tenants who tend to want more parking spaces, and trying to weave those competing demands is often challenging here. If the building is built with less parking than the code allows, that could compromise its viability for future uses, and that could require future parking modifications should some tenants want to occupy the building that don't meet the parking requirements. That can obviously be a little problematic in terms of leasing as well for the tenant, simply because the city is not able to give assurances to some tenants that they're able to actually occupy the space without having to seek that future relief from the parking requirements. And with that, I will leave it to our applicant to add any additional information to the presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. Make sure I'm unmuted. Yeah. Can I share my screen here?
Good.
Let's see. All right. All right. Has it come up?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. Well, thank you, Daniel. I mean, you did a great job describing the project. You kind of went over 99% of it, but I wanted to touch on the parking modification because that's the one point that we're looking for a variance or a modification. Maybe just a little introduction to who we are. We're a family-owned engineering contractor We've been in the Bay Area for over 40 years. I've lived in Campbell for over 8 of those years, and very excited to do a project in Campbell. Most of our work is in bridge construction. We also do structural retrofits and, of course, real estate development. But we also have a transportation division. So, and in that transportation division, we design, build, operate, and maintain automated transit systems like you see at airports. So we're very aware of the need for adequate parking, and we're very used to dealing with that last mile challenge. And when we found this lot, we're really excited. One, again, we're from the area and we love to do a job in Campbell, but also just its proximity to not only Highway 17 has good freeway access and Santa Tomas Expressway, but it also has good access to public transit and obviously the bike path as well. So if we look at the last mile, we call it, obviously we're well inside that 1 mile radius, but realistically, nobody wants to walk a mile these days. So we typically look at that half mile radius, and you can see we're just on the outskirts of that. But as you guys know, there's a lot of changes going on with, the addition of e-scooters and shared scooters and e-bikes and Uber and Lyft. So these circles are tending to get larger and larger, and people are being able to grasp, get to their point of work from these locations. If you look at the half mile radius from all the local bus stations, the 3 closest ones, you can see we're well inside that half mile radius. But more exciting to me was its location as it relates to the creek trail and the other bike paths. I'm an avid cyclist, and this really excited me. I've always wanted to have an office near the creek trail for just that reason. And I mean, Daniel put this up earlier, but this is the Campbell citywide bike map. And if you zoom in, you can see where our project is in relation to the different bike routes. And we're within 500 feet from a bike lane, which is the Santa Tomas bike lane. We're 600 feet to the bike trail. Obviously, we've got the creek trail there, and then 800 feet from the main bike route, which is the Winchester Boulevard. But what does that really mean unless you have a facility that really invites transit in this manner? And when I ride my bike to work, it's a great ride, but once I get there, I don't have the facilities. I have to store my bike in my office. I don't have a shower. And with this project, we want to put the parking out front as required, but we're also putting indoor bicycle parking for bicycles, scooters, motorcycles. And obviously we want to add the shower as well for the benefit of the coworkers. And this picture here really shows our layout. You can see we have 15 stalls. We try to maximize it as much as possible. When this was originally developed or went through planning in 2012, I believe it was, I think there was 12 spots. And we were able to squeeze in 3 more by removing one of the roll-up doors and reconfiguring the trash enclosure. But you can see we're really maxed out here at 15 spaces. But to summarize, the justification for the parking modification, the reasons why we feel that you should consider this is, it has the close proximity to public transit. The last miles become shorter due to the increase of use of bikes, shared scooters, e-bikes, e-skateboards, Uber and Lyft. That's becoming more and more. I mean, just this year, I think with COVID, bicycle sales have I think doubled year over year. And without the alternate forms of commuting has increased in popularity with the bikes, with the scooters, which reduces the need for parking. And we're seeing that more and more. I mean, you talk to millennials out there, young people don't want to own a car anymore. And, a lot of them that have them are getting rid of them and getting electric scooters and finding other ways to deal with the situation or sharing rides. And also Daniel pointed that out a bit on industrial properties. you know, every city has their reason for having the requirements, but if you look at the surrounding cities and industry guidelines, Campbell is a little bit more strict. And again, I know you have your reasons, but it is quite a bit higher than what we're used to. And then lastly, which is important, we're likely gonna be owner occupied here. We have a large facility in San Jose, but we're out of space, and we're probably gonna occupy this as a satellite office or a satellite facility. And we can't see needing more than six spaces. So with 15, we'd more than double what we need. And again, I know we need to look at future use, and you know, the city is always going to have the right to say no to a certain occupancy, and that lays upon the landlord to have a reduced use. But we intend on keeping this building. We intend on occupying it, and the 15 spaces is more than enough for what we need. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time, and hope that you guys will recommend approving the project with the parking modification.
Thank you. I had a question. So in terms of, you said you plan to use this as a satellite office. What does that mean in terms of?
I mean, most of our work is in bridge construction. So we bring in materials from around the world, and we bring them into our facility right now in San Jose, and we assemble them for installation in bridges across the nation. So it'd be bringing in materials, assembling them, packaging them, and sending them back out. So mainly assembly would be the use that we'd use it for.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, in my view, I guess my other question was the design of the building. Can you tell me your thoughts around the kind of combination of the modern front with the block gray striped rear?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an architect. I'm not going to claim to be. So we went with our architects. He came with a couple different patterns, I guess you will. The front, we always had the same with the tower and the different materials with the wood, you know, under roof and the stucco. And then we had different patterns on the masonry. And we went with the straight lines. He had kind of a new, kind of modern artistic pattern that he was looking at too, but it seemed like it fit better in the neighborhood with the straight lines. Obviously, an industrial building is a challenge to make beautiful. It still needs to be functional, but I think he did a fairly good job there.
Commissioner Ching, did you have any questions?
No, I don't think so on the questions.
Great. Okay. All right. Would you like to weigh in on the project?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, starting with the design. I like the design. I like contemporary. I think there's always balance between type of economics, something that's upgrading the area, which this is. So I think it's a good design. I think it's really nice. So in terms of the parking, as you probably know, I'm a bit of a fan in public transport. So type of preaching to the choir in reducing because of the Los Gatos Creek Trail and vicinity of the public transport on there. Although, as a biker myself, biking down Winchester isn't a pleasurable thing, but that's more of a challenge for the city.
Hopefully we make it better, right?
Yeah. I think there's a path planned in there, but it's not great at the moment, especially going under that underpass. You really do take your life in the hands, whether you're biking or walking, but that's not really your issue. So I'm fully supportive of the reduced parking requirement there because of the vicinity and all the things you mentioned. I think there was the other issue of relocation or the requirement to relocate the overhead power lines underground. And I read the report by your is it Radius Design, I think it was.
Yep.
Given the requirement by PG&E, it does seem like an awful lot of effort for a relatively small frontage. And if we were going to do it as a city, probably should do the whole thing rather than just on a 150-foot length. So again, I would be in support of keeping the overhead lines there.
And just so you guys know, we would prefer to go underground, but it really is restrictive to just have, you know, it's a pretty narrow lot, so there's not much frontage. So being able to go down and back up, it would be a big undertaking.
Yeah,
You can't
it'd be
put a
nice to do the whole
compression-
street.
You basically do the whole street. Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, you can double the number of poles
And behind the building as well. And then we'd have to add a pole back there as well. And it got to be a little crazy.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
I
so
could, we're seeing a number of these types of utility variances that strongly suggest we need to reevaluate this particular requirement moving forward.
So question, Daniel, if we do a variance so it doesn't need to go underground, is there something where the applicant is required to pay a fee in lieu? So in the future, we'd have some funds where we could do the whole street or do something. Is that something we do in Campbell?
I know, unfortunately, underground utility district is a much more expansive process that needs to be city initiated. I know the commission has discussed this in the past, but it doesn't really work on an ad hoc basis.
Right. Thank you. That's it for me. I think I'm really supportive.
Okay, great. Yep, thank you, Commissioner Ching. Yeah, and I'm also supportive of the parking modification. I think as you laid out, the 15 parking spots appears to be adequate given the proximity to the public transit and the creek trail. And the underground utility. Yeah, I live in a neighborhood that just had to deal with that, and it is. They had to put up an extra pole to do the undergrounding, and looking at the whole thing, it doesn't seem very, it doesn't seem like there's a real benefit to doing that. So I'm supportive of the variance as well.
Yeah, do we lose Mike? Huh.
Maybe he had a connection issue.
Yeah, maybe. We do have one of his colleagues, Nicole, on, but she has her video and mic turned off at the moment. But we can keep going if you want to finish your thought.
Oh yeah, that was it. I was done.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So no additional comments?
Not for me.
All right. I guess we are all set for tonight. I will see the two of you at 7:30.
Great.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
My apologies. Are you all still there?
Mike, yeah, that was really about it. They didn't have any further comments.
Yeah, sorry. We're on top of working from home. I also got evacuated, so
Oh,
I'm dealing with a little challenge here with the internet. So
okay. All right. So
anyway,
looks like we're all
thank
set.
you, Dan.
Okay, you have
Go
a good
ahead.
day. Bye.
All right. Sorry about that.